Chapter 11. The sun was saying goodbye to the sky when I stepped outside. The wind blew particles of sand that stung my skin. My hair whipped behind my head, and I felt drops of Helter's blood shake loose. I took a deep breath and thought how good it was to be alive. Then I laughed like a sick drunk. I think I was losing my mind. It was about time. I was in shock. It was as if the bullet had gone through my own brain and out the other side. I felt a part of me that had been good and moral was forever gone. The guys were standing beneath a tree in front of the gym. Pepper shuddered visibly as I approached. Stan stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. "Hi," I said. "Did you do it?" Pepper asked. "Sure," I said. "Why not? It was probably in the script." "We have to find the rest of the story," Stan said. I laughed again. "Why? Tearing them up didn't do any good. Nothing's going to do any good. Why don't we just go sit in one of the classrooms and write our own stories? Who knows? Maybe Betty Sue will be pleased and give us a passing grade." "We have to know what's going to happen next," Stan said. "Nothing will happen next unless we make it happen," I said. "I say we plant ourselves in a field and act like cornstalks. Let the storm pass." "That might not be a bad idea," Stan said, "but we're not going to do it." He gestured back the way we had come. "We'll get flashlights to look for more pieces of paper." Pepper stopped him. "Shouldn't we bury Helter first?" Stan shook his head. "Helter will have to wait." We got flashlights, fresh batteries. I changed my shirt. I had whole stores to choose from. It was wonderful, a shopper's dream. I left all my bloody pants. They had become a part of me. We started again near Betty Sue's house and worked our way downwind. We walked unarmed like good little campers. The task should have been hopeless from the start, but it was amazing how many pieces of notebook paper we collected. By the time we neared the square, we had pocketfuls. Stan made us stop. He tried to put some of them together. More puzzles, I thought. It was now entirely dark, but the lights in the square were still working, and we were grateful for small favors. "What if we don't put them together?" I asked, as Stan taped in the beams of our flashlights. "What if they don't work unless we read them?" Stan glanced up. "I doubt Steve Kinder read his story." "Which one was he?" Pepper asked. "The boy who got cancer after he moved away from here," I said. I waved my hand at Stan. "Go ahead." Stan had been working for maybe 10 minutes when he stopped and frowned. "I think we've only got 2 stories here, not 3. "I hope it's me she left out," Pepper muttered. He looked over at me. "Just kidding." "I hope she did leave you alone," I told him solemnly, kneeling beside him. In the soft light, he was even more handsome than usual. I thought back to our first date then, and put my head back to stare up at the stars. A part of me turned cold and died. "Do you think there's anyone out here?" "No one human." There were no clouds in the sky, no haze, no smoke, and there were no stars either. Betty Sue must have failed to write them in. She probably knew how much I loved them. A strangled cry escaped my lips, and Pepper had to reach over and catch me, because I no longer cared if I fell. He cradled me in his arms and stared into my eyes. Then his own gaze lifted to the sky, and he too began to shake. I heard Stan's voice. "We have to believe her now," he said. I climbed out of Pepper's arms with difficulty and scooted over beside our class genius. "If she can take away the universe," I said, "she can do anything." Stan seemed beaten. "I have no answers for you." I touched Stan's knee. "Could she kill us tonight and bring us back tomorrow? Could she kill us over and over? Forever?" Stan put a hand to his head. "I don't think she can bring back the dead." "Why not?" I asked. He sat still for a moment, then twitched involuntarily. "Let's see what the stories can tell us." Stan worked for another few minutes. He could have worked for hours. I wouldn't have cared. I had stopped being aware of time. Who was to say there would be a tomorrow? The sun was only a star after all, and maybe Betty Sue could have moved it as far away as she wished, into another dimension if she so desired. Finally, Stan Reese had a story for us to read. It was about him. Soda Radar Goes to Sleep. Soda Radar was a court jester to Queen Beetle. Soda would tell his queen stories while she sat on a magnificent chair and sewed with her needles. She sewed dresses and cloaks, and sometimes they ended up on the fire and turned to smoke. Queen Beetle was wonderful, and Soda Radar was sometimes disrespectful. She told him, "Your stories have no rhyme, no sense of time, and that is the worst of crimes." Then she sent Soda into the woods to think of a story that would deliver the goods. She told him he had best get better, or she would tickle him with a feather. Soda picked up a stone and turned over a bone. He looked at all the things of the woods to make a story, but came no closer to true glory. Then he said to himself, "Queen Beetle is not so smart. I will tell her a story from the past, from a time that has not been marked. She will think it is mine, then she will treat me kind. He returned to the court of Queen Beetle and went to her private chamber while she sat sewing with her needles. I have brought you a story of wonder, Soda said, a tale that will ring in your soul like thunder. Then he told her about salt and pepper and a plate of late dinner, the story of kids and the end of time and cold winter. Queen Beetle smiled as he spoke, but inside her clasped hands she readied her needles for a poke. Soda did not know this and finished happy, thinking he had presented himself in a tone that was both clear and snappy. I can see I kept you from being bored, Soda said. I am happy you are pleased, and now I want my reward. Queen Beetle stood and her height was good. She said, From day one you hovered near me like flies. You sing and dance, but really you think of it all as lies. Your story is not new, but old, and I have decided it is time you were sold. Then Queen Beetle took her needles and grabbed Soda's arm, and began to do him great harm. But he cried aloud and said, Do not do this to me, your slave. I apologize, and promise never again to misbehave. Queen Beetle laughed and gave him her needle. Poke yourself so that you bleed, she said. Then I will take what is left of you and give it to someone who is in need. Then Soda took her needle and stuck it hard into his heart. His blood poured onto the floor, and after some time he had to close his eyes, and inside it grew dark. Cheery, I said. I love the upbeat endings, Pepper agreed. He patted Stan on the back. None of it has to happen. But Stan was ashen. I used to think of her as my queen, he whispered. Why? I asked. Because she was so powerful, he said. And you visited her whenever she wanted you to, I asked. He nodded miserably. I had no choice. That witch, I said. Stan stood. Excuse me, I have to get something from the drugstore. I jumped up. What? I have a headache, he said. I need some aspirin. We'll go with you, I said. He stopped us. It's not necessary. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. He handed us the remainder of his notebook scraps. See if you can piece together the final story. It was my turn to stop him. You're okay, aren't you? I asked. He smiled. Such a nice guy. The best, really, of all of us. Sure, he said. Don't go picking up any needles, I said. I'm serious. He nodded, but there was no life in the gesture. I understand. Stan slowly walked away in the direction of the drugstore, the one beside the bank. Just before going inside, he stopped at a newspaper rack. He fished inside his pocket for change and bought himself a paper. Then he went inside the drugstore. I think I should go with him, I fretted to Pepper. You might want to stay with me, Pepper said. He was already on the ground, fiddling with the scraps Stan had left behind. The wind was hassling his efforts. There was sand in his hair, and I brushed it out. Why do you need me now? I asked. He glanced at me. Because, in case you didn't notice, I was mentioned in Stan's story, and I can already see that this story's got my name all over it. Oh. He paused. Why do you hate me, Rox? I was annoyed. I don't hate you. Why do you say something stupid like that? You haven't been particularly nice to me today. Well, I'm sorry, it has been a kind of bad day. I propped my hands on my hips, a gesture I never normally used. You haven't been nice to me either. Pepper tried to lean over and touch me, but I was standing just out of reach. What is it? He asked. Why don't you tell me? Tell you what? About your relationship with Betty Sue for one thing, I said. I know you had one. Your name is all over her bird diary. He was obviously worried, which did wonders for my confidence in him. What did it say? He asked. Does it matter? I want to know what you have to say. I took a step closer. We used to tell each other everything, Pepper. Tell me now about her. I don't know how much longer we'll have to talk. He stared at his feet, sitting perfectly still for a minute. He closed his eyes, keeping his hands pressed on top of the scraps of the last story. I went out with her a few times, he said finally. She had a mystery about her that I found fascinating. But we didn't do anything interesting. He opened his eyes and shrugged. We went to a couple of movies, ate dinner a few times. Did you kiss her? He hesitated. Yes. Did you have sex with her? He faced me straight on, his dark eyes wide. No, Rox. Did you go out with her after you went out with me? No. He raised his hand. I swear to God I didn't. I took a deep breath. The world had come to an end. The stars had been vanquished, yet I felt so relieved. I leaned down and gave him a tight hug. You sure know how to pick 'em, I said. Are you referring to yourself or to her? He asked. I let go of him and stood straight. Both. I glanced at the drugstore. Stay here a second and put the rest of the story together. I want to check on Stan. Pepper started to get up. Don't you want me to come with you? Once more I was breaking the cardinal rule of real-life horror, but I answered without hesitating. No. I passed the newspaper stand as I approached the drugstore. The Salem Herald. Circulation 4015 if something was happening in town. The bin was empty. I wondered if Stan had taken the last copy. I opened the door to the drugstore and went inside. The lights were out. Stan had not bothered to turn them on, but enough illumination came in from the square lamps to keep me from bumping into things. Stan sat on the counter near the front, his legs dangling down, leaning back on his arms. One page of the newspaper rested on his lap. "Hi," he said softly. "How's the headache?" I asked. "Better. Did you take something?" "Yeah." "Good." I sat down on the floor at his feet, looking up at him in the silent dimness. He appeared more at ease than he had a few minutes earlier, and that made me relax. "So, what's new in the news?" I asked. He nodded with his head for me to take the paper off his lap. Apparently, he was too comfortable the way he was sitting to move. "It's only the first page," he said. "Is it today's paper?" I asked, reaching out for it. "Tomorrow's." I froze as I touched the paper, afraid to take it. "How's that?" "It has tomorrow's news in it," Stan said. "Have you read it?" "Yes." "Is it bad?" "Yes." I sat back on my butt. I had the single sheet in my hand, just the one. I turned it over without reading the headlines. Blank. Betty Sue had not wanted to waste ink. I turned to the front. The headlines. Destiny. Tragedy strikes 5 local teens. Beneath the caption were 5 small pictures. Senior pictures that would be in the yearbook when it came out in a month or so. Leslie's picture, Helters and Peppers, and Stan's. Mine too. I wasn't smiling as the others were. "Should I read the article?" I asked. "There's only the first half of it," Stan said, "but it's interesting." "Interesting," I muttered. I began to read. 5 Salem teens died yesterday. Leslie Bell, Helter Skater, Stan Reese, Paul Pointzel, and Roxanne Wells. Each death appears to be an isolated incident, unconnected to the others, but local authorities are not dismissing the possibility of a group suicide pact, although not all the deaths were apparent suicides. Leslie Bell died in her garage at approximately 2 in the afternoon when the gas tank of her car exploded. Her parents were out at the time. It appears Leslie was trying to pour extra gasoline into her tank from a can of fuel her father reserved for supplying his lawnmower. There is speculation that she had a cigarette in her mouth at the time of the incident, although her parents deny that she smoked. It is thought that she died instantly. Nobody else was injured in the explosion. Helter Skater died at Salem High when he either intentionally or accidentally shot himself in the groin and the head with a Colt .45 revolver. His body was found in the girls' shower room Saturday evening. Authorities don't know how he came to be there. Stan Reese's body was found at approximately 10 last night in his bed. His parents were home at the time, but didn't know there was any problem with their son. Police are saying Stan was a probable suicide because both his wrists had been slit, but there was no note as is usual with suicides. His parents felt that Stan was still distraught over the suicide of Betty Sue McCormick, who only 4 weeks earlier doused herself with gasoline and lit herself on fire. The 4th victim to be found was Paul Pointzel, who died at... Please turn to page 3, Tragedy. "She would just end it there," I complained. "I don't know," Stan said softly. "Maybe she didn't write it. Maybe it's the way it will be written." I set aside the page. Actually, I dropped it, and it floated softly to the floor. "So we know the truth at last. We're dead. We don't have to worry anymore. It's over." I felt like crying right then, but my tears were used up. Did I believe my own words? I hoped not. Death couldn't feel this awful, I thought. Not if there was a God. But what if there wasn't? What if the soul did survive for eternity, but in a careless chasm where no divine will reigned supreme? That would truly be hell. We would be forever at the mercy of Betty Sue's wicked games. "Maybe we're not dead," Stan said, "and not alive. Maybe we're somewhere in between. Is that possible? I don't know." I forced a chuckle. "One thing for sure, I'm not letting you go near your bedroom." He yawned. "That's too bad. I feel like a nap right now." I stood up and stretched. Pepper's trying to piece together the other story. Maybe we should get back to him. "Would it be okay if we sat here a little longer?" he asked. He sounded so sad I didn't have the heart to say no. I sat back down. "Sure, whatever you want. Do you have any new ideas on what we should do next?" "Explore the truth," he said. "What do you mean? What truth?" He sighed and let his head roll back on his neck. His arms were still behind him, supporting him. He was breathing hard, but I figured it was because the stillness inside the drugstore was claustrophobic. Of course, so was the night air outside, beneath a starless sky. "Betty Sue called me over to her house the last day of her life," Stan said in a dreamy voice. It was not one of those times when I felt I had to go see her. Still, I wanted to say no to her. She sounded strange, even for her, but she said I had to come. She needed my help. What was her problem? I asked. Stan grimaced in the shadows. She was pregnant. She told me the minute I walked into her bedroom. She said she had to get rid of the baby, and she had to do it that day. Do you know who the father was? Stan thought a moment. No. Did the father know she was pregnant? I think so. Go on, I said. Stan's head came forward and hung over slightly. He seemed weary to the bone. His breathing was definitely labored. This is the thing I didn't want to tell you about, he said. She was playing with me. Maybe she was already playing with all of us. She wasn't really pregnant? He shook his head. She was and she wasn't. She had already started to get rid of the baby. At least that's what she said. Even before I asked, and he answered, I felt sick to my stomach. What do you mean? I whispered. Stan sighed. I don't know the gory details, thank God. But she said she had done something to her insides. When I got there, she was hemorrhaging internally. She looked fine at first, but then she told me what was happening. Then I saw stains on her. I didn't even want to say it. I believed she was telling me the truth. She wouldn't let me take her to the hospital. She wasn't scared. Like I told you earlier, she was happy. She told me she had an exciting evening planned. I pressed my hands to my ears. I can't listen to this. Stan was sympathetic. I understand. I begged her to let me help her, but she refused. She said she knew how to take care of herself. She said she was going to make herself invincible, so that nothing could ever hurt her again. Then she would come back in style. Come back? Spooky, yeah. But first she said she had to take care of some unfinished business. She wanted me to get her a few things. What kind of things? Pictures of Helter and Leslie and Pepper and you. She also wanted a picture of me. She needed them to make voodoo dolls? I asked. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, in a sense. Her stories are like those dolls. Why did she want you to get the pictures? I asked. I was probably her only friend, and I was on the yearbook staff. It was easy for me to obtain the pictures. I got her copies of the ones you just saw on the front page of the newspaper. Why did you do it? I asked. I didn't know she was planning next month's news. He shrugged. I don't know if I had a choice in the matter. Why didn't she get them herself? That's an interesting question. I believe she wanted me to know what she was up to so that when we ended up here, wherever we are, I would suspect that she had something to do with it. Did she say anything else that led you to believe she could work such a major miracle? Two things. She told me just before I left that her butterfly jar could be any size she wanted it to be. He sat up straighter, and it was a major effort. He was dozing as he spoke. That's why I didn't want you to try to leave town. I didn't think you'd be able to. You thought we'd run into a glass wall. Something like that, he coughed. All day long we've been flying in tiny circles, and dying, he added. It's been hot today. What was the other thing she said? I asked. He raised his head as if it weighed a ton and met my eyes. You went to Foster this morning to get an abortion, didn't you? I was shocked that he'd know. Did Pepper? No, he interrupted. I knew because she told me that there would be another like her, and that she'd use this other to screw tight the lid on her jar. What does that mean? Since we're talking about Betty Sue, I'd venture to say she needed you and your situation as an important ingredient in her curse. But I didn't get an abortion. I couldn't go through with it, and got up and left in the middle. Stan's head jerked up at the remark. In the middle. Before the procedure got started, I clasped at my abdomen. All day long, I had had no ill effects from what the doctor had done to me. I felt safe that I had changed my mind in plenty of time. Yet now, ever so faintly, I felt a cold liquidy sensation in my guts. It crept from the right to the left, like an icy finger across my intestines. I shook it off. It was probably just Stan's story, I reasoned. It was enough to make anybody's stomach turn. I didn't mean to pry into your private business, Stan said. No problem. Did you see her again after you left to get the pictures? No, she didn't want to see me. She wanted me to get the pictures, put them in an envelope, and slide them under her bedroom door, and that's what I did. How come you didn't tell Betty Sue's mother what was wrong? She wasn't around. You should have told someone. Stan gestured helplessly. She didn't want me to. Was Betty Sue in her room when you returned with the pictures? Yes, I called to her, but she didn't answer. I think she was writing, probably these stories. Stan raised his head once more, and I was surprised to see tears streaming down his cheeks. Oh, God, he whispered. Stan?
He sniffed. You know, everyone thought I was pretty smart. I was a nerd, but I had respect. People didn't make fun of me. They liked me, and I liked them. My life was pretty good. It was a great life. Stan shook his head sadly. It couldn't be great because deep down inside I was a coward. I knew what was right and I knew what was wrong. I knew everything connected with Betty Sue was wrong, but I did what she said because I was afraid of her. His voice cracked. I should never have brought her those pictures. It wasn't your fault. I got up and stepped to his side. Come on, let's get out of this drugstore. It's got bad vibes. Let's go see Pepper. The night's young. We'll think of something to do. It'll be okay. Stan refused to budge. I can't go, he mumbled. Come on, I said, tugging at his arm. We'll make a plan. I stopped. I had stepped into a dark puddle. It was coming from the back of the counter, through the druggist's walkway. A whiff of a sickly copper odor touched my nostrils and stabbed right into my heart. I leaned around where Stan sat and saw that the puddle formed from twin trickles pouring off the counter, and following the course back a bit further, I realized that Stan had slit his wrists and was bleeding to death right now. Stan, no, I moaned. I'm sorry, he whispered as he sagged into my arms. I caught him before he could fall. He was cold to the touch. He continued to weep. I had to do what she said. But why? I cried. I don't know why. It's always been this way. He coughed some more and buried his face in my chest. I believe I felt his heart flutter in his chest. It was probably low on blood to pump. It was amazing Stan was even conscious. The puddle soaked the entire space behind the counter. I wanted to save you and Pepper from her, he said pitifully. I hugged him tight. You did your best. I kissed the side of his face. Can't we try to stop the bleeding? It's too late. He sat back slightly, wrapping his bleeding arms around him, shivering. I'm so cold. Why is she doing this to you? You were her friend. Maybe that made me her worst enemy. I was the only one who knew her secrets and still liked her. I had to be gotten rid of. I ran my hand through his hair. Is there anything I can do for you? He nodded. Put me in my bed when I'm gone? I began to cry. Then it will be just like the paper. Then she will have won everything. He cried with me. She has won. No, I won't let her. I grabbed his shoulders and he shook in my hands like a rag doll. You can't die yet. You have to tell me how to stop her. But I had apparently waited too long for my emotional plea. Stan tried to speak, but collapsed in my arms. I laid him back on the counter. He gasped for air. His skin was white as marble. The vampiress had claimed another victim. Damn her to the deepest hell. He gestured me closer. I pressed my ear to his lips to catch his last words. He smiled weakly. I always had a crush on you, he said. I'm glad you passed your math class. I buried my face in his chest. I always had a crush on you, Stan. But I didn't know if he heard me. He didn't answer. And when I sat back up, his eyes were open, staring at a distant ceiling that covered the visible stars. I closed his eyes for him and folded his arms across his chest. Goodbye, old friend, I said. Chapter 12. Pepper took the news hard. Can't say I blamed him. Once there were 5, and now there were 2. I couldn't bear to think which one of us would go next. We have to get out of here, Pepper said desperately. I don't know if we can, I said, thinking of the glass jar. Pepper held me by my shoulders. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. I hadn't told him about the newspaper. I suppose I didn't want to worry him. We can't stay here, he said. Her power may not extend beyond the limits of the city. I nodded. I had no strength left to argue. We can leave as soon as we move Stan's body to his bedroom. Forget it, Pepper said, letting go of me. Every second we stay here is dangerous. Stan's dead. We can't help him. I turned toward the drugstore. It was his last wish. I'm going to move him to his bed with or without your help. Pepper grabbed me from behind. I had never seen such fear, and I had seen a lot of it that very day. We have to leave now. I read the last story. What did it say? I asked. Stupid question. He pulled a handful of paper scraps from his pocket. It says that I'm going to die, he replied, thrusting the mutilated story in my face. I sat down and put it together. Another voodoo doll. Salt and Pepper for supper. Salt and Pepper were a happy couple. They laughed and kissed, and when they were apart it was as if something was amiss. But they were only spices. All they had were flavor and a few miserable vices. It came to pass one day that Salt and Pepper met Fat Freddy. He said to them, I will take you to my queen. Are you keen? Salt said, I do not know her name. I do not know if the one I think of is the same. But Pepper said, I know this great queen. I have heard she never gets mean. So Fat Freddy took Salt and Pepper to meet Queen Beetle, and they found her sewing in her secret chamber with her needles. Queen Beetle said, I know this Pepper. He kissed me once, but then he left and never wrote me a letter. Then Pepper was afraid and clung tight to Salt. Pepper was so afraid he would not tell Salt it was all his fault. But it was time for Queen Beetle's dinner, and because she was never rude, she invited them to stay. Salt and Pepper said fine, thinking they were hungry and might dine. But they did not know Queen Beetle's hate, and when they looked away she snatched them both and set them on her plate. The queen said, Do not scream, or I will certainly cut you like a bean. But Salt protested, Why are you doing this? Why do you hate? To which Queen Beetle laughed, It is not simply hate, it is much more honorable. It is fate. Then Queen Beetle picked up her knife and fork and reached for her bottled wine and pulled the cork. A toast, Queen Beetle exclaimed, for the flavor Salt and Pepper give to my roast. Then Queen Beetle stretched out with her knife and fork, and Salt was so angry at Pepper that she pushed him onto the queen's pork. There Pepper caught the queen's fork, and it pierced his chest, and he died like a foolish dork. Lovely, I said. I looked up at Pepper from the curb where I was sitting and reading. The wind howled, the sand blew, our flashlights rocked. Such a scene this cruel night. Was this all your fault? I asked. What are you talking about? Pepper asked. I thought of the story Stan had told me, Betty Sue's last day. Never mind, I said flatly. Pepper knelt anxiously at my side. You're not angry at me, are you? I touched his face. No. He glanced down at the story. Please don't get angry at me. I let go of the scraps of paper, and the wind carried them off into the night. I understand, I said. We took care of Stan. We put him in the back seat of my car and drove to his house. We carried him into his bedroom and eased him under the blankets. I wanted to bandage his wrists, but Pepper wouldn't let me. I left the light on in the bedroom. I turned in the doorway and peeked at him one last time. At least he looks peaceful now, I said to Pepper. The dead always do, Pepper muttered. I thought of Helter, what was left of his head. I don't know about that. Then we were outside again, in the dark, windy part of Betty Sue's universe. My car had gas in it. We had got $5 in it that morning at the deserted station. We took Highway 37 out of town, the same road we had taken to Foster for the abortion. But this time we headed north on it. I insisted on it. Pepper didn't mind. He talked as we drove. We'll get to L.A. tomorrow morning, he said. We'll go straight to the beach. We can be walking beside the water when the sun comes up. That sounds wonderful. I stared out the window as Salem shrank behind us. The wind was worse than I could remember all day. Pepper had to fight to keep the car moving in a straight line. We were being sandblasted. By the time we'd reached the other end of the desert, there wouldn't be a speck of paint left on the exterior. You know, it's possible there might be other people in L.A., he said. I respect the thing Stan said. I'm sure Betty Sue was a weird chick. No one can argue with that. But Stan might have taken the thing with her too far. We might find people everywhere. I hope you're right. Of course, I didn't believe a word of it. But if the talk made Pepper feel better, then I wasn't going to argue with him. The front of the car swerved dangerously in a strong gust. We should slow down. I'm only doing 45, Pepper said. Do 35. Pepper nodded and slowed. At least in L.A., we won't have to worry about affordable housing. We'll be able to stay anywhere we like. He glanced over at me. Where would you like to stay? Beverly Hills. Why there? It sounds rich, I said. How about Malibu? It's rich, too, and it's by the ocean. Malibu would be fine with me. We could go see all the sights, Pepper said. It might even be better that everyone's gone. We won't have to wait in any lines. Hey, we could go to Disneyland. We'll have the whole park to ourselves. Won't that be a trip? How will we get the rides to work? It can't be that hard to turn them on. We'll probably just have to push a button or something. I nodded, enjoying the fantasy. It was all we had left. The wind was getting stronger and stronger, coming at us straight on now. Pepper had to keep the gas floored to maintain a meager speed. I want to go on Space Mountain first, I said. You know the names of the actual rides? He asked. I know lots of them. There's Space Mountain, Pirates of the Caribbean, Thunder Mountain, and the Haunted Mansion. Pepper laughed. Maybe we could skip the Haunted Mansion. I laughed too. Yeah, we have Salem for that. Pepper shook his head. Can you believe the stuff that happened to us today? No. I hope when I wake up tomorrow it's all forgotten. So you think we might just be dreaming? The car swerved again harshly. Careful, I cried. I am being careful. Pepper leaned forward and tried to peer through the sandstorm. Our visibility was almost non-existent. Our speed was down to maybe 10 miles an hour. This is unreal, he muttered. Can you see? I asked anxiously. I see what you see. Maybe we should try to leave tomorrow. No, he snapped. The noise of the sand rained in my ears like a meteor storm in outer space. But if we crash, what good will it do us? He was adamant. We're not going back. We'll die if we go back. 10 minutes went by. In that time, we didn't talk about Disneyland or Beverly Hills. We sat in silence because we both realized what was happening. The power of the wind was growing in direct proportion to our distance from Salem. Pepper had the accelerator floored, and we were barely creeping forward. Outside the windshield was a wall of moving brown dust. We're beginning to overheat, Pepper said. Our glass jar, I whispered. What? Pepper yelled over the racket. We have to go back. He shook his head. No! Then just stop the car and we'll sit here. I grabbed his arm. Pepper, it's no use. He took his foot off the gas and stopped the car. We sat for a minute in the loud darkness. It was ironic. All day I prayed for the silence to lift, and now that I had noise, it was driving me crazy. We can't just sit here, Pepper said finally. Turn around. He touched my knee. You won't get mad at me if we go back? Why would I get mad? I'm the one who said we have to go back. He let go of my leg. I just wanted to get that straight. We turned around with difficulty, but once we were pointed toward Salem, we could have returned without any gas. The wind pushed the car happily along until the town became visible. That's when the storm, no big surprise here, suddenly eased. As we crossed the city limits, a feeling of despair swept over me, like that of falling into a bottomless well, where no matter how long you dropped, you never hit bottom. Never feel the icy black water seep into your black heart. Still, you knew it was there for you, eventually, like oblivion, death. Pepper looked over at me. Where would you like to spend the night? He asked. I smiled sadly. Disneyland Hotel. Where else? Your place, I said. But who spoke? Who made us choose that place? I believe it was her. Pepper's house stood silent and black at the edge of town. We parked in the driveway, but we didn't go inside. By unspoken agreement, we took each other's hands and walked to the barn. The cozy hay. Our love nest. God, that night seemed like a million years ago. Indeed, suddenly, it seemed as if it had never happened. At least not to me. It was as if Pepper had been holding on to another girl that night, when he was supposed to be holding me. Many things came clear to me as we stepped inside. They came clear to me in darkness. Yes, it's true, something swept over me all right. Perhaps the wind brought it. I cannot explain the power of it except to say it was profoundly subtle. So subtle, I didn't know at the time if it wasn't of my own making. I experienced the clarity of a cruel kind. Pepper lit a lantern and hung it on a brown wooden beam. I sat in the loft of hay and lazily swung my legs. Up and down, back and forth, I was thinking. I wished I could stop. Our thoughts had been our enemies all day. If we just decided to lie down and take a long nap when we met at the ice cream parlor, we would have all been still alive. But perhaps that was not our fate. Pepper sat beside me and put his arm around my shoulder. What's the matter? He asked. Nothing. You look sad, he said. I am. Very sad. He nodded. At least we're together. I looked at him. The blue-green prairie in his eyes. The sunshine in his mouth. My Pepper. I looked at a stranger. Did you sleep with Betty Sue? I asked. He blinked. No. I took his arm off my shoulder and stood staring down at him. Did you have sex with her? I demanded. He got up also and stood in front of me, up on the loft. On the soft hay in the soft light of the warm lantern. No, he said. I chewed my lower lip. I tasted blood. It tasted like it had been mingled and polluted with another's blood. That was true in a sense, I thought. I was carrying Pepper's child. What blood would pump in the veins of that child? It made no difference to me right then that the fetus hadn't even grown a heart yet. I felt as if I was no different from the undeveloped baby. Suddenly, my heart was not working. All I could do was think of Pepper in the arms of Betty Sue, both of them naked, both of them having fun. My boyfriend, my true love. Honest to God, if I hadn't loved him so much, it couldn't have hurt so much. But that is, I believe, why God gave us love, so that we could feel pain. It made us that much more mortal. It made us that much less than God. In the end, all love did was bring pain to me. God damn the way things are, I thought. I took a step closer to Pepper. You're lying to me. He shook his head quickly. No, rocks. You're lying to me, I screamed. You screwed her. You got her pregnant. Pepper froze. The life simply fell out of his face. Then he raised his hands to cover his face. And I was glad. I didn't want to have to look at him. It disgusted me when he began to weep. I'm sorry, he moaned. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt you." He shrugged. No, he shook. He trembled as if the blood in his veins had become ice. "It was just something that happened. I didn't plan it. I didn't care for her at all." I pulled his hands down from his face. I screwed my face up into his and breathed fire on his shame. "All I want to know," I said with deadly calm, "is whether you screwed her before or after you screwed me. Tell me the truth. Don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I'll get angry, and we both know how dangerous that can be." He twitched. "Before." I sucked in a breath and slowly reached up and grabbed him by the collar. "And after?" I asked. He twitched again and swallowed hard. "Just once," he said. I let him go. "I see," I said. Then I shoved him backward, not all that hard, but he fell. I watched him fall over the wooden railing, off the loft, and onto the soft hay below. No big deal. I had done almost the same thing the night we made love. But I should have remembered that night better. It hadn't been that long ago, that close call. I should have at least remembered Betty Sue's story. Queen Beetle and her fork digging into her peppery pork. The pitchfork was in the hay. It was hidden, just barely, beneath the light brown straw. Worst of all, it was pointed up. Pepper landed on it on his back, and in an instant all 6 blades pierced his chest. I saw them pop out the front. Red steel going through the cotton shirt I had bought him for his birthday. Blood mushroomed over his front. I saw him open his mouth and try to scream, but blood poured from around his teeth and drowned him out. God, there was so much blood. "Pepper," I said as I stared down at him from the loft. I didn't know what else to say. I couldn't very well say I was sorry, although suddenly I was more sorry than I had ever been in my life. The power of the spell had been broken at last. I understood that's what my anger had been. Leslie had taken up smoking because she was under a spell. Helter had fired repeatedly into his own reflection because the curse was working on his mind. Stan had slit his wrists open because she had told him to. In my own way, I had done what I was told. Pepper gagged. I climbed down from the loft and knelt by his side. Betty Sue had lined us all up, and now she was almost through knocking us down. This was the 3rd time in one day I had knelt beside a dying friend. It wasn't getting any easier. Oh no. I looked at him, struggling like a pinned butterfly trying to free itself of a painful needle, and I could not understand. I just refused to understand such horror. I thought that if I did, I would know the universe's worst secret. What a joke. I knew it already. No matter how bad things got, they could always get worse. "Pepper," I said, and took his trembling hand. He couldn't lay still, couldn't lay back. The damn thing had him propped up in severe discomfort. I watched the red liquid soak down from each individual gleaming knife. It wouldn't be long, I thought. Pepper looked over at me like a sad boy who had lost his mommy. I would have yanked the pitchfork from his back and thrust it through my own chest if it would have eased his sorrow the tiniest bit, but it would have done nothing, so I did nothing. "I'm sorry," I said. "Rocks," he gasped. I leaned closer, placing his hand on my heart. "Yes?" "I'm sorry, too," he whispered. "You were first, only one." I nodded. I understood. He hadn't lied to me, not really. "You were my first and only." He glanced down at the red blades protruding from his chest. Blood trickled out the side of his mouth. "No escape," he moaned. I put my free hand on his forehead. He felt warm, and for a second I worried he was catching something. Silly me. I had always wanted to take care of him, always and forever. "There is an escape," I said. "We've already taken it. We escaped when we fell in love at the reservoir. The spaceships came for us and carried us up to the stars." I kissed his face. "I'll be with you soon, sweetie. We'll go to the stars together." I began to cry. I didn't want to. I wanted to be strong for him, as he had been strong for me these last few months. I pressed a bloody hand to my eyes, but my tears just ran red and wouldn't stop. All the things that had happened to me so far, they were nothing compared to this. They were like the dream, and this was the painful reality. My life hadn't really started until Pepper had entered it. Now I felt my life ending, even before Betty Sue could get her hands on me. "Wait for me," I cried. "Please?" He looked at me with exhausted eyes. "Rocks. Love you." I nodded vigorously, sobbing uncontrollably. "I love you too." I hugged him, my arms going around him and the metal prongs. I think it was all right to squeeze him tight. I had done it before. I used to squeeze him so hard I pretended I was squeezing his soul into my soul, but right then, I didn't have to pretend. I felt it was real this time. His soul, his love, so warm, so sweet, so soft, it was like I could touch it directly. All of Betty Sue's lies had washed off me. Thank God I'd had a chance to love this guy, I thought. It had made all the pain worthwhile. Thank God, I said, opening my eyes and seeing his eyes closed. His pain was over. He was dead. Thank God, I repeated.